Once, in an ancient kingdom, a great king invited a learned Hindu priest to perform a sacred ritual in his court. After the ceremony, the king, curious and eager to learn, asked the priest 3 profound questions about the nature of God. The questions were as follows. What does God look like? How far can God see? And what does God do? The priest, humble in his wisdom, acknowledged the king's questions and requested time to contemplate and find appropriate answers. The king, respecting the priest's thoughtful nature, granted him 1 month to return with the answers. The priest returned home, his mind consumed with the king's profound inquiries. He pondered deeply, searching through sacred texts and reflecting on his spiritual practices, but he was unable to find precise and definitive answers. As the month drew to a close, his anxiety grew. The priest feared he might disappoint the king and fail to provide satisfactory answers. At this moment, the priest's learned and intelligent son noticed his father's distress. Seeing his father troubled, the son asked what was bothering him. The priest explained the situation and the king's questions, expressing his concern about not having found the right answers. The son, wise beyond his years, listened attentively. After a brief pause, he smiled and assured his father, saying, "Don't worry, father. You do not have to worry about these questions. I will answer them for you when we go to the king's court." The priest, intrigued by his son's confidence, asked him to share the answers now. But the son, with a calm demeanor, declined and said, "You will understand when we reach the court. Trust me." On the appointed day, both the priest and his son traveled to the king's palace. The king, eager to hear the answers, welcomed them and turned to the priest asking, "Are you ready with your answers?" The priest, with a sense of respect and admiration for his son's wisdom, replied, "Your Majesty, my son is more knowledgeable than I, and he will provide the answers you seek." The king, now intrigued, turned to the young boy and asked the first question, "What does God look like?" The priest's son, without hesitation, replied, "Your Majesty, you are a great king, and yet when a guest arrives at your court, you have not offered them any refreshments or a drink. You have jumped straight to the questions. I am sure your guests must feel uncomfortable in such a situation." The king, feeling a slight sense of embarrassment, immediately ordered a servant to bring a glass of milk. The young boy then began stirring the milk with his finger, staring at it intently, as if searching for something within it. The king, curious, asked, "What are you doing?" The priest's son calmly responded, "I am searching for butter in the milk." The king, now confused, laughed and said, "You cannot find butter in this way. First, the milk must be turned into curd, and only after it is churned can butter appear." The boy nodded thoughtfully and said, "Exactly, Your Majesty. Similarly, God cannot be seen immediately in the way you wish. He resides within every living being, but to truly experience his presence, one must meditate, follow the righteous path, and seek him sincerely. Just as butter must be churned from curd, one must churn their heart through devotion and meditation to see God's presence." The king, now deeply impressed by the wisdom of the boy, turned to him with his second question. "How far can God see?" The priest's son, with a serene expression, asked for a candle, which was quickly brought and lit. Holding the candle, he turned to the king and asked, "Your Majesty, tell me, how far does this light reach?" The king replied confidently, "The light from the candle spreads in all directions. It goes wherever there is space." The boy smiled and said, "Precisely. Just like this light, God's vision spreads everywhere. He sees everything. No place is hidden from him. His sight is boundless, and nothing escapes his attention, no matter how far or hidden it may be." The king was again struck by the boy's wisdom. But there was still one final question left. The king asked, "What does God do?" The priest's son, with a glint of humor in his eye, asked the king, "Your Majesty, are you asking this question as a king or as a disciple?" The king, now humbling himself before the boy, replied, "I ask as a disciple." The priest's son then stood up and looked around the room with a knowing smile. He said, "Isn't it strange, Your Majesty, that the disciple is sitting on the throne while the teacher stands before him?" The king, realizing the deep meaning in the boy's words, stood up immediately. He invited the young boy to sit upon the throne, and the boy, with grace, obliged. As he took the seat of the king, he turned to the king and said, "Now, what God does is clear. He has the power to transform the world in an instant. He can turn a poor man into a king and a king into a poor man. Just as I am now sitting on this throne, and you, the king, are standing before me, so too can God alter the course of events and the roles we play." The king, deeply humbled and awestruck by the profound wisdom of the young boy, realized the deep truth in his words. The boy had answered not just the king's questions, but had shown him a profound insight into the nature of God, his omnipresence, his all-seeing vision, and his boundless power to change the fate of any being in the blink of an eye. The moral of this story is profound and timeless. God is present in every living being. He sees everything, and nothing escapes his notice. His presence is not limited by space or time, and his actions are not bound by human understanding. Whether we are rich or poor, powerful or humble, we are all equal in the eyes of God. Therefore, we should always strive to act with kindness, humility, and righteousness, as every action has consequences, and nothing goes unnoticed in the eyes of God.